Good morning, everyone. Jimmy22 here, because why the hell not? And I have another review for a book this time, and it's called The Good Guys by Stephen Burst. Which I have just finished last night. And I'll be honest, it was a little bit harder to get through than I know how I am normally with books, and I'm not sure how much of it is the actual book's fault and how much of it is due to the fact that I barely just got full-time. This is kind of like my first week working full-time, and so I went from 20 hours to 38, and and plus it's hot. It is freaking hot. Yesterday was over 100. The day before was over 100. At night it feels like 100, but that might just be because I'm one of those people who has to sleep with a blanket. I don't know. But enough about me. Let's talk about The Good Guys. And the basic synopsis of this, before we get into spoiler territory, is it's a murder mystery, a series of murder mysteries, kind of a thriller, I guess you could say. It's a thriller. So that's the synopsis. And if you like, and I understand a lot of people like thrillers and mysteries, and there's some that I really enjoy too. I'm a huge fan of the Pendergast and Dresden novels, so I can understand the appeal of mystery. So if you do like mystery, because I am gonna spoil things, I'd suggest pausing this video right here, bookmarking it, making a note somewhere, swearing to yourself that you will come back and finish it, and go read The Good Guys. And so this way you can enjoy the mystery. But that being said, let's get on to the plot. And I'm not going to go on too much detail to the plot, just towards the end, because that's where it really got good. But I'm going to talk about some of the issues I had with it and some of the pros. The major issue I had, and I understand why it was done this way, because mystery, and they don't want you to know everything at once, but is that there was at least 4 different stories going on that were interwoven together. 4. And each chapter, which took place at a different perspective, was pretty short, less than a 10-15 minute read, which is good if you're suddenly working full-time and you like to end chapters nice and evenly, especially so you can enjoy it in your break. But the thing is, it gets annoying because it's back and forth so much, and there's some slogging. You know how it's the detectives, and they have to figure things out, and they're throwing ideas around, and sometimes that's kind of slow. And there's some action too. Okay, let me ask you this: if you've seen Infinity War, and all the cutting back and forth didn't bother you, this shouldn't bother you too much. I mean, it's a movie and it's a bigger percentage, so it seemed like a longer part. But yeah, just use that as a base of reference. And so, yeah, that's the main issue with the plot. And there were some parts that were really good. Like the other thing is, it wasn't even. Like, the desire to see what's going on in certain sections was not even. So you hit some areas, especially with the main characters. The main characters is Donovan, who's basically Sherlock Holmes. He had some FBI training. Susan, the military tough girl. Marcy, she's basically Bubbles, and Susan's Buttercup. And those are the 3 primary characters, the main detective group. And then there's Denver Dixon. He had a weird D name, and he was the one who was in charge of them. And he had a real interesting story too. Like, whenever it followed him, I liked his parts because it was dealing with bureaucracy. It was dealing with the red tape of the world. that they lived in. He dealt with accounting, he dealt with some of the higher ups, he talked to some of the low ups. That was interesting. There was this guy named Matt who was paid to kill the main characters, and he failed, and then they talked to him, and he learned about the world that they exist in, and he became interested. So he had his journey learning about the world and trying to get hired by the people in the world, the people that they work for. So that was interesting too. Yeah, there were good sections, but then there was other sections where, like, the main section I had problems with, and you understand why it was done this way, because it's revealed later at the end that it was a guy giving a confession. But there's these the whole story is three of the intertwining stories are told in the third person. But what's confusing is there's one of the stories that they're all told via first person. And it's not like the case where he's an omniscient person, so he knows everything that's going on. He doesn't, story-wise, he doesn't have any reason to be able to see what's happening to the other characters. It's just at the end, they end up catching him and they get him to tell him the story, because he was the cause of some of the problems. And so I didn't like that. So those are kind of the issues with the plot. And then the main characters, again, their characters seem more like checklists. Like, okay, there was small parts of bursts of we understand what's going on with them, and then that was about it. Like Susan, they called her hippie girl. She liked Game of Thrones. She wanted a relationship, and she bought her coffee from some place called Happy Something. Marcy, she was married, and she was a nice, doe-eyed, fresh starting person. She was new to the team. And then Donovan, who, again, Sherlock Holmes, they try to give him more personality, but really the only thing about him that I actually liked, aside from, he did show he was smart, and he did have, reasoning and logical skills, and was that he had a different way of interrogation. There's interrogation scenes in here that are really well done, and I really, really like them. And what it is when he interrogates somebody, because he even told Decker, the guy in charge, like, I don't like the way you interrogate somebody. Because when he interrogates somebody, he does it the right way, and that is you treat them like human beings. And this isn't just, because you're a good person or whatever. This actually works. When you interrogate somebody with torture or any kind of aggressive means, they'll just lie to you. They'll lie because they're hurting, so they hold a grudge against the person torturing them. Or they'll lie just to say whatever the other person wants to hear to, again, stop torturing them. But if you treat them nicely, then they're much more likely to tell you the truth. And I like that philosophy that he had. But yeah, other than that, there's not much about him that really, his character doesn't stand out a whole lot. Now, that being said, he was just, I like the way the team was set up, because you had Donovan, the brains, the leader. You had Susan, the muscle. She had training in military and martial arts, and there was Marcy, who was the sorcerer. And this is kind of where the book gets cool, but in a very subtle way, is that there's sorcery, and the type of magic in this world, it's kind of like the Dresden Files in that it's based on physical physics. You can move things around, but you're not summoning lightning from another dimension or pulling in creatures or causing curses. And that's what made the magic so interesting, because it was really just you shift the physical world around. It was based in physics. Like the guy who was doing the killing. There's two types of magic. So the first type and the primary type, it has to do with lines. I'm not sure if these are supposed to be ley lines, but they're lines, and people can pull power from the lines and mess with the world. That's the lines. The secondary is that people have the ability to put power into items, and they're kind of like they're enchanted, but one-time use. So if you put power in, say, this door, and you can have something happen to this door when somebody steps through it, so long as you say the words, because each item has an activation phrase or motion, and yeah. So those were really cool, and that's what the villain was doing. He was taught that the first thing he did was time freezing time, which they don't even they don't even try to explain that one, because they're like, no, it's physics, but it's not the kind of, we don't understand it, but it's physics. And I do know time is based on gravity, so. And the guy, the killer or whatever, he uses different items, and like one item he flash freezes a pool while somebody's underneath the water, and that kills him. He gives somebody a heart attack. He summoned, I don't know how they work, but he summoned some weird disease, and again, it was because it shifted, so it made sense. And yeah, but they don't throw it in your face. They don't rely on the magic. There's little bits and pieces here and there, and that, I think, is what this author really did well, is that he spread out what you learn about the world, especially when you're looking at it through Matt or Dexter's Dinners. Why can't I remember the boss's name? Oh my gosh, I just read this book. Oh, I'm getting Alzheimer's. I wonder if it's all the sugar I eat. You learn the magic through them, or when Matt's interrogating or investigating things, which I thought was cool too. And to deal with the magic, there are two agencies, and we learn more about one than the other. But the first agency, chronologically speaking, is the Mystici, the Mystici. It starts with M, and it's kind of brings to mind the word magi. And basically, they're kind of like the boys' club, sort of, in a way. Like they look after other magicians, and they tell them, don't do something stupid, don't break the law or anything that draws attention to yourself. You're not allowed to become a stage magician, because they don't want everybody to know magic exists. And they do a lot of research and development with magic. And they also are the richer of the two, because they do rent out sorcerer services to other areas. And so the other one, and they're kind of like split off from the Mystici, and they get along, the two groups, but not so much, is called the Foundation. And the Foundation is more hands-on. They're more of a policing force. They're willing to work with people who don't have magical power, like Donovan, because the Mystici or Majesty, or they just they'll hire people who have talent. Whereas the Foundation, they're like, okay, you can be useful here, you can be useful there, and so they do work together. And the Mystici does actually give the Foundation quite a bit of money. They do share their R&D findings. The two groups don't like each other, but they work together via necessity. In fact, the Foundation, it's investigating the murders of Mystici people. That's one of the main connections. Yeah, so, and you do see a little bit of their group dynamics, like they do kind of argue a little bit, but that's the main reason I would get a sequel to this book if it ever came out, was because I would love to see more of the world. And again, I like the bureaucracy. You don't see many books with bureaucracy, but it makes sense, because these are organizations. Like the guy I don't know which way cameras work. I don't know how cameras work. The main guy, Donovan, he works for them, and he doesn't make a whole lot of money. I mean, he makes minimum wage. They pay him on a retainer. They gave him a house to live in, and he said the medical benefits are the best. That's very low copay, very good medical benefits. Why? Because they need money. They don't have a lot of money, and you never think about how these organizations work. But yeah, money. You need money, and so I think that's really, really cool. It's just the world I would love to see more. And again, this author left you just enough about the world to make you hungry, to wet your lips. So, magic, bureaucracy, hidden society. It's really, really. They have teleportation, and this is one of the coolest things that they said. It wasn't like a whole big deal, but they can teleport. Like, they have machines and setups where it allows them to teleport to different areas. So you think, okay, they're just going to teleport everywhere, but no, there's a catch, because again, it takes money. When you teleport, you have to make sure everything is exactly right. So I think they said it's $2,000 per slipstream. And it's another $1,000 to reset everything so it can be used again. Was it Slipstream? No, it's not. It's Slipwalk. And so there's sometimes in the beginning you're like, what? You see it like, that's awesome, but then there's other times where they're like, oh, we'll drive here. It's only an hour away, and like you're investigating a series of murders. Why would you drive anywhere? No, because it takes money. You need money, and so it makes the world go round. Even in what does that say? I don't know. That's saying anything about society per se, but it's like, okay, this is a universe where people can mold the fabric of reality. They can mess with time. They have all these powers, but you still need money. You can't exist in this society without cash. And I thought that was so cool. You don't see that too much in books, or at least fantasy and magic. At least I don't. I need to go become a more aggressive reader, and hopefully, talking about these will help. So, yeah, I mean, that's the. Oh, before I go, before I tell you who I do my recommendations or final thoughts, one of the things that agitated me the most about this book is there was this. I think she was a Russian girl. There was an L and a V in her name, and an S. And she comes out like in, I think, 3/4 of the way of the book. Well, no, towards the end. She's only in like 3 or 4 chapters, but when they mention her, they make her out to be this fantastic badass, and then she gets caught, and then they use the nuclear option on her. Well, okay, that's second nuclear option, because in this world there's 2 nuclear options for individuals. One, people can actually take away other sorcerers' powers. They can DRS, and again, it's an acronym. And why? Because foundations and red tape societies, and just big bureaucracies like acronyms. So the first nuclear option is you can just depower somebody. You can even make it to where they can't even use items. They can't sense the magic anymore. And that's actually what happened to the villain, and that's why he needed, that other guy to be manipulated to start using magic items, because he was depowered. And then the second thing that happens is they'll just execute you. Like they don't. That's another interesting thing too. And I guess it's because they don't want to draw too much attention to the world. Is because they don't rule with an iron fist. Even when you see people do things that maybe might call, like the mastermind, he went on a killing spree and he killed 9 people, I think they said. And because he didn't like what the company was doing, because it wasn't they're not very moral. Like the Foundation and the Mystici are not super moral. They're just kind of like trying to keep their things hidden in the world. And so him and the boss, Denver, they actually went on a killing spree. And look, the boss, he's in charge of the ranch or whatever it is, where they investigate and they kind of try to suppress things. And the other guy, well, yeah. So, anyways, that's the thing with back to that girl is, she's this badass and the most powerful sorcerer we see in this story, and she's basically a throwaway character. She's there for just a few chapters and then she's done. And she's not. It's going to be interesting to see how she makes it. I would love to see more of her in the sequel. I would love to see this person who her whole power, her power, all because they give you her real thing of her backstory, but just see her suddenly without power, because she was just throwing her weight around, all over the time. She was, I think, a hitman. So it would be interesting to see somebody who they learn to do things on their own, and just lived on their own suddenly without disability. But yeah, so final thoughts on The Good Guys. If you don't mind a lot of back and forth, if you like mysteries, if you like magic, but not Game of Thrones dressed in just sorcery and all the way in more contemporary setting, this book's for you. If you need really, really interesting characters that are written in a way that you're going to remember them, years from now, I wouldn't say this book is for you. I can't see that working out too well. If you want to read a book that might be launched into an interesting franchise, because this world has a lot of potential, and I am excited to see where it goes, then yeah, I would definitely say pick up The Good Guys. And as for the name, The Good Guys, there's some back and forth whether or not who the main characters are the good guys or they're not, and there's some really great things that happen at the end where it's like, okay, maybe you are, maybe you're not. There were some cold-blooded things done in Rage, but so yeah, I wish I talked. Anyways, I'm gonna start babbling again, but yeah. So you see some good people do terrible things, some terrible people do some other. Well, no, there's no real. I guess that's why it's called The Good Guys. I just realized that it's called The Good Guys because everybody thought they were doing the right thing, or wanted to do the right thing, or needed to do the right thing. That's kind of what it is. And if you look at it like that, I guess the characters aren't too bad because they all wanted to be the good guys, to do the right thing, even if it's revenge or if it's killing people who are bigger monsters. So in that respect, I guess it does go higher. So maybe it went from a C plus to a solid B, just with that idea alone. I can't believe I didn't picture it. Well, in my defense, I have been up since 5 a.m. and walking the dogs, walking the other dog, shower, work. Anyways, but yeah, check out The Good Guys if it is something you're interested in, and don't check it out if it's not. Again, if you can take Infinity Wars flashes, that might be a good sign you can take these. So this has been Jimmy22 with another book review. Bye.